Hey everyone, Retro Dude here. Thanks for visiting my channel again where we check out all things retro and cool. Today we're going to take a look at Metroid Dread. When I heard about this game, I got super excited. I love the Metroidvania genre. And when you hear pioneers releasing a game, you stand up in attention. It got developed by Mercury team who come from having done Samus Returns, a remake of Game Boy's Metroid 2. I got really excited when I saw that they were going to keep a 2D side-scrolling platform. It instantly brought Super Metroid to mind, and that game was badass. Believe it or not, Dread was actually conceived in the 2000s for the DS, but was cancelled because of the DS's limitations. The game's a direct sequel to Metroid Fusion from Game Boy Advance. Let's take a quick look back at that game so that we could follow up on the new game. So on that game, the main enemies are what's called X. They're like parasitic organisms that get stuck to you and can mimic the host abilities. In Samus's case, it made the SAX. I think it stands for Samus X, which is a clone obviously of her. It took all of her Super Metroid powers. So the only way she was able to be cured is by injecting Metroid DNA into her, which were the only known predators to the X parasites. As a result, she was able to gain the ability to absorb the X parasites, like a Metroid would. A thing of note, my son would often mention to me that he was always scared when the SAX parasite would show up on the screen on the Game Boy Fusion game. He wasn't the only one because this was the inspiration for the Metroid Dread game, maintaining that sense of Metroid Dread. So cut to Metroid Dread. The Federation receives a video footage of an X out in the wild. And Samus is sent to investigate. Now up to this point, Samus has destroyed every planet she's been in, so you don't want her around in your neighborhood, if you catch my drift. As soon as she arrives into the planet, she's attacked and defeated by a Choso warrior. The same kind that made her suit. Keeping to the tone of Metroid Fusion, the game actually has a very prevalent sense of dread when you're being chased by the Emmy, a new type of enemy that Samus is powerless against for the most part. They can only be killed by a Omega Blast that you acquire by killing some monsters that look a lot like Mother Brain. So for the most part, all you can do is run from the enemies when you encounter them. And if they catch you, it's almost certain death. They have a small window, very small window in which to avoid their one-shot kill attack. The classic gameplay's back. It wouldn't be Metroid without those beautiful power-ups that you're able to get. We get the Morph Ball like 2 hours into the game. You get a power-up shot, you get missiles, you get the speed boost, a new camouflage feature that helps you avoid the enemies when they're looking for you. A melee attack that's extremely satisfying to use. If timed correctly, it actually stuns most of the enemies. And if you kill the enemies while they're in that stunned state, they actually give you a lot of resources. As a result, the game never really felt hard. If you were low on health or missiles, all you had to do was melee an enemy or two and you were good to go again. We also get a flash step that's extremely useful to use both in boss fights and in just regular gameplay. I imagine speedrunners are going to be spamming that like crazy. Speaking of the bosses, they all have a discernible pattern to them, so once you get used to it, they're a breeze to beat. Though I did find myself just tanking through a lot of them. But if you're gonna go that route, acquiring the various optional power-ups is a must. Speaking of which, the game has these awesome speed boost puzzles that are a blast to try to figure out and add quite a bit of fun to the gameplay. I can't say the game felt extremely polished. The controls were intuitive. You didn't need to navigate through half a dozen menus to select the power up. This game's fluid and fun. The music was atmospheric. However, you know me, I would have preferred some classic Metroid tracks, or at least some new music. Metroid music is iconic. I can't believe they opted not to include it in it. I mean, they could have just gotten the music from Smash Bros, right? You do get a little bit here and there, but mostly they're just sound bites. Like when you get the power-up items like the tank or any of the power-ups that you get. The lack of epic music like that was kind of a letdown for me. Graphically, even though the game's in 2D, you could actually tell that it pushes the Switch to its limits. I noticed it skipping a few frames here and there, mainly on some of those epic boss fights where like all things are going back and forth. It doesn't really hurt the gameplay, and it didn't slow down to a crawl. It's just barely noticeable, and it is rare when it happens. But it is worth noting that Nintendo needs to step up their game on some of their consoles. They are always severely underpowered in my opinion. I'm not talking about them competing with Sony or Xbox, it's just with a little bit more oomph, right? Now, that being said, it is a beautiful looking game. Samus's armor looks really nice, especially when it's changing when you're acquiring those power-ups that change the look of the armor. The bosses, some of them are epic. We get the huge boss Kraid, which actually came out in the Super Metroid. It was the huge boss that has like little holes in his stomach. That cutscene was awesome with Samus shoot him in the mouth as he's like yelling right in front of her face. Cutscenes can be skipped, which is a good thing because, like I said, once you learn the pattern, they become a breeze, but not when you first encounter them. So you're gonna die a lot, and you don't want to go through those cutscenes every time you die. Even the enemies have a certain little flair to them. They look really nice, and the environments are both varied and stylized, as they've always been in the Metroid game, really. Even the backgrounds are lively. There's some instances where you think something's gonna pop out of these backgrounds. The game is great fun to play. First run is gonna clock in at around 10 hours, but with a little bit of effort, once you know where everything's at, you could probably get it done in half of that. By the way, don't forget to check out my full playthrough. It's only around 4 hours. The game's only available for Nintendo Switch, and it's definitely worth the price of admission at around 50 bucks. If you're a stickler for ratings, I would probably rate it around like 8.5 out of 10. But I'm not big on the rating system or anything like that. It's just, did you have fun or didn't you have fun? And sometimes is the game completely epic? So I wouldn't say it's epic status. I don't know if it'll supplant Super Metroid, but it's very solid, well-made game, and it is a ton of fun to play. Thanks for joining me again. If you like what we're doing, subscribe, and don't forget to hit me with a thumbs up. Keep checking back with me for more cool stuff, and as always, stay retro.